Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you are joining for the first time, I appreciate your time. Listen, folks, the United States of America's hypocrisy in terms of its geopolitical engagement with the continent of Africa, specifically after the Russian-Ukrainian war kicks off, which is currently going on at the moment. I think that with the U.S. current administration trying to build a solid relationship with the country of Russia, it goes a long way to say that the U.S. has misplaced priorities. South Africa and a number of African countries, Eritrea and the rest, came under tremendous pressure because of their collaboration and their relationship with the country of Russia. Make no mistake, the United States of America is regretting why it's putting South Africa in the current position that it is, because South Africa is a vital country in the continent of Africa, and the United States cannot, to an extent, see South Africa collaborating with Russia and China, countries which the United States of America consider to be its geopolitical foes. Where is the hypocrisy here? In the Biden administration, South Africa was considered to be a country where we should sanction them, we should remove them from AGOA and take them away from other geopolitical issues, pressuring them on the non-aligned stand. Today, the new administration in the United States of America is going very close to the same Russia. Russia has strong relationship with the continent of Africa and especially the country of South Africa and a whole lot of countries in sub-Saharan African nations. The current administration of the United States of America has abdicated completely its responsibility on global issues, and we all are just thinking on what the next 4 years will be. Considering the G20 at the moment, it's an opportunity for the continent of Africa to realize that it is about time to start making choices. At the moment, the country of China is really clapping and, to an extent, very happy that the current chaos that we are seeing in the geopolitical environment coming from the United States, from Germany, lambasting German government and their approach blasting Europe with regards to their perspective on how the world should move, pressuring Egypt and the continent of Africa entirely cutting aid and moving forward to engaging South Africa from a condescending perspective. I think China is really happy and relaxed that the United States is cutting its job for them.
All right, let's now speak to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, right off the bat, we'll get even to China in just a moment, but I want to stay with something that the DIRCO minister just said. It's that the impact of what is currently taking place geopolitically is also widening the political divisions as well. And it kind of speaks, to a hint of possibly how robust these engagements were behind closed doors, as he said.
Yes, they were quite robust. You are correct. The meeting came at a time where there's divisions in terms of what's happening globally, with the president of the United States of America gravitating towards Russia. And we know that with the European Union community and the developed North, Russia is a no-no. And therefore, there was going to be contestation of influence in terms of what needs to be done on these issues. You also have a situation where the past 3 years, South Africa has been under tremendous pressure from the very same United States of America that it must abandon its relationship with Russia. And therefore, this time around, now you have America saying, we are going to mend our relations with Russia. And therefore, where does that leave those who were very vocal, even mobilizing during elections, which also contributed, by the way, to the outcome of the elections in South Africa, as there was vast interest in our elections in terms of ensuring that the foreign policy of South Africa gravitate towards the developed North. On the other hand, we had a situation where China became a voice of reason. It did happen. When you look at the presentation by China, China was reconciliatory and trying to bring all stakeholders together. And this happens at a time where economically China is very, very powerful, particularly in relation to South Africa and China. China now being our largest trading partner, not only us and many other countries as well. And therefore, China coming in, closing that gap that looks like it's developing based on the Trump's approach to international matters and global trade.
According to the CNN journalist, someone that most of the time I would not agree with, but in this sense, Farid Zakaria came out clear in a short piece. He clearly elaborated and illustrated why, at this moment, the United States of America's geopolitical partners, not just from the continent of Africa or Europe or Asia, it's an opportunity for them to start reviewing this partnership. Farid dived into it and illustrated the reason why, at this moment, the U.S. failed to have foresight with regards to what is about to happen. Let's listen to Farid.
But the reality is, in the short run, Western allies of the United States are in a bind. They have relied on the United States for their security. They have accepted U.S. leadership for decades now. And the entire security system has been built on the idea that the United States was the guarantor of the peace. The United States was the underwriter. So they can't easily find other options very quickly. But in the long run, Caitlin, what is going to happen is these countries, which are rich, powerful countries, are going to start asking themselves what kind of independent path they have to chart. That's going to happen with Canada, that's going to happen with Europe, and that means these countries will move away from the American sphere. They will look for a better relationship with China. They will look to find new ways to find markets, to find friends. This is the greatest gift, not just to Vladimir Putin, but to Xi Jinping. China will benefit from this more than any country perhaps in the world other than Russia, because this means that a lot of American allies will have to find a way to, make their way in the world, which means having better relations with China and not subordinating their relationship with China to what America wants.
It is important that China, at the moment, at the current G20 Foreign Affairs Ministers in South African meeting, is really happy at the moment because it is a forum where China, which one of its closest allies, South Africa, and a member of BRICS, is hosting this event. And without the United States participating at a very high level, I understand there are some U.S. embassy officials who are to an extent representing the Troika engagement. But Marco Rubio's absence speaks volumes, and as a result of that, China is exploiting that particular absence to show leadership in that area. Tomorrow, the United States start complaining that China is all over the place, is in Africa, is leading, is driving policies, is engaging international organizations. The United States has abdicated its responsibility with the Climate Paris Agreement. It's clear the President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, removed the United States from this. And what is the consequences? You are giving the opportunity for China to step in, for the European Union leaders as well. At the moment, Europe also is not in bed with the United States of America. And Europe is beginning to make its own choices from a whole of different areas. We saw the President of France call an emergency meeting to talk about the current position that Europe should take with regards to the next 4 years. It is vital in the geopolitical circles, and Africa understand the value and importance of the current G20 taking place in the continent of Africa. Well, this moment with European leaders as well in the continent of Africa and in South Africa talking about this, it is important to know that the decisions that are going to be arising from this, as the US will be the one to take over from the G20 after South Africa, it is vital to note that China is filling the gaps, and Russia and other countries are engaging the continent from a whole other perspective. We have countries that are not members from G20 who have been invited to engage and talk about issues, and Marco Rubio snubbed and thinking that without the United States of America's presence, as we saw in our previous episode, the foreign affairs analyst talked about, the world has to move even without the United States of America. So the US not attending this and building its relationship with Russia, of which Russia is a critical player in the continent of Africa, only goes a long way to alienate and give that extended gap. The hypocrisy shows that if you do not want South Africa African nations to go closer to Russia 4 years ago, and within a space of 2 months, and you're going very close to the same Russia, then there's a level of hypocrisy. I think Africans should also at this moment realize that the decision they have been making is vital, is important for their own interest. China has demonstrated that they are engaging the continent of Africa. China is looking at those different gaps.
The other important issue is that there were robust discussions around transformation of the United Nations. You know that there's a call that the UN must transform, particularly the Security Council. Earlier on, the French Foreign Affairs Minister saying they support the transformation of the UN and that Africa must have 2 permanent seats. You also have a situation where you had to deal with the conflict around the world, particularly the war in Ukraine. There you have America, you have European Union not seeing eye to eye currently with the European Union member states, most of them rallying behind Ukraine. We have Donald Trump saying Ukraine has caused all this mess and therefore talking to Russia, and therefore that tension again playing itself here in South Africa. And I think it was good to have foreign affairs ministers discussing all these issues, including the war in Sudan, the conflict in the Middle East, and also the DRC, so that when you get to November, you don't have a situation where you are still dealing with these issues.
And, you know, lots to talk about as far as what you've just said. We'll get to the Ukraine president and our president in just a moment, but I want to stay with something that you said around, you know, China. And we talk more about this, you know, assumption that maybe now we may see more of a leadership role that they may be taking, given what is taking place between South Africa and the US. And I hope let's just expand on that, because it may even go further than this.
Yes, you know already South Africa and China during the BRICS summit, they agreed to strengthen their relations, trade relations, political relations, including arts and culture. You'd recall that the president visited China during the summit of African heads of state and government in China, that FOCAC, but the focus also on the margins was that state visit. And therefore China winning the hearts and minds of African countries in relation to trade, but also politically, as I pointed out, China took a reconciliatory tone when other countries were at each other's throat in terms of these issues, particularly the European Union member countries in relation to what's happening in the Ukraine, and also in relation to Russia and America. You had China becoming a more cool-headed country on all these issues, and that assisted South Africa to be able to steer the ship, because you had this powerful country with economic muscle speaking. And I think where the Secretary of State of the US is now, I think there's regret that he should be here to kind of push the interest of the US, and therefore you had China filling the gap, and it's not gonna be easy going forward. We are going to see more of China filling the gap, not only in terms of the geopolitical issues, but in relation to trade and investment around the world.
Like I said before, the sense of nationalism that has engulfed the international community is scandalous at this particular stage. Countries are abandoning multilateralism, collaboration, partnership, engagement. A number of nations are embracing condescending paternalism at the moment. This is the problem that we see at the moment, because it's not going to work. African nations are getting closer to partners that provides them the opportunity to engage and to develop and to move ahead, to look for technology, growth, healthcare, facility, infrastructure. So the United States swift geopolitical shift at the moment going closer to Russia, and which Russia is still very close to the continent of Africa, and you wanted Africans not to be very close to China and Russia. I think that's a total hypocrisy. At this time, the continent of Africa should understand that this G20 is a big opportunity. And at this moment, You cannot criticize Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea for going, or Chad, for going closer to Russia and China, because the big heavyweight geopolitical partner, the United States, is going a lot closer at the moment to the country of Russia. And Russia is a big player in the region. So this total hypocrisy that we all see in the geopolitical environment, it's not going to sit well in the continent of Africa. And China at the moment is clapping and very happy that the US has abdicated its position as one of the leaders in the world, and China is filling that gap without any hesitation. And Europe at the moment is still observing where does China stands and Africa, if these are the partners. Don't forget, Europe is Africa's neighbor to an extent. But the worst come to the worst, like I know in the geopolitics, there is no shame. It's still time and opportunity to look for new market, like Farid said. I want to thank you for watching. Drop me a comment and let me know why you think the United States feel it okay to engage Russia very closely, alienate China, and then put South Africa under pressure for not going closer to the country of Russia, of which Russia has a historical relationship with the countries across the continent of Africa. For now, I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Let me know if the current President Donald Trump is a gift for the continent of Africa. Have a pleasant day. Bye-bye.